Masculinity, at its core, is not about dominance, loudness, or control over others. It is deeply rooted in self-respect. A man who truly understands masculinity does not measure his worth through external validation, attention, or approval from people around him. Instead, he builds his identity on an internal foundation, one that is stable, grounded, and unshaken by the changing opinions of others. Self-respect becomes the silent force that shapes his decisions, his behavior, and the way he carries himself in every situation. It is not something he demands from others, it is something he first establishes within himself. When a man has self-respect, he does not tolerate disrespect, even in subtle forms. He does not laugh off being ignored, manipulated, or treated as an option. This does not mean he reacts aggressively or seeks confrontation at every slight. In fact, the opposite is true. His strength lies in his restraint. He observes, understands, and when necessary, he distances himself without creating chaos. Self-respect teaches him that he does not need to prove his value to anyone who fails to see it. Instead of arguing for recognition, he simply removes his presence from environments where he is not valued. This kind of mindset requires a deep level of inner discipline. It is easy to chase, to beg, or to hold on when emotions are involved. It is easy to compromise one's standards in the hope of being accepted or loved. But a man rooted in self-respect understands that lowering his standards does not bring real connection. It only brings temporary satisfaction followed by long-term dissatisfaction. He recognizes that every time he ignores his own boundaries, he weakens his sense of self. Therefore, he chooses discomfort over self-betrayal. He would rather walk alone than walk in a direction that diminishes his dignity. Self-respect also shapes how a man communicates. He does not over-explain himself, nor does he seek constant reassurance. His words are measured, purposeful, and honest. He does not speak to impress, he speaks to express truth. At the same time, he knows when silence is more powerful than words. He does not engage in unnecessary arguments or try to win every disagreement. If a conversation becomes disrespectful or unproductive, he steps back, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. He understands that not every situation deserves his energy. In relationships, self-respect becomes even more crucial. A man who respects himself does not chase someone who is inconsistent or uninterested. He pays attention to actions rather than empty words. If someone shows him through their behavior that they are not invested, he accepts it without trying to force a different outcome. He does not believe in convincing someone to stay or to care. Instead, he believes that genuine connection should be mutual, natural, and effortless in its core. This does not mean relationships require no effort, but the effort should never feel like a one-sided struggle. There is also a strong sense of emotional independence that comes with self-respect. A masculine man does not rely on others to feel complete. He enjoys companionship, connection, and intimacy, but he does not depend on them for his sense of identity. His happiness is not entirely tied to someone else's presence. This independence makes him more stable and less reactive. When things go wrong, he does not fall apart or lose himself. He feels emotions deeply, but he does not let them control his actions in a way that compromises his values. Another important aspect of self-respect is the ability to set and maintain boundaries. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about defining what is acceptable and what is not. A man with self-respect is clear about his limits. He does not allow repeated disrespect, dishonesty, or inconsistency in his life. And once a boundary is crossed multiple times, he does not continue to give endless chances. He understands that boundaries without consequences are meaningless. Therefore, he is willing to enforce them even if it means losing people. Self-respect also influences how a man handles rejection and failure. Instead of taking rejection as a blow to his ego, he sees it as redirection. He does not chase after someone who has already chosen not to choose him. He accepts the situation with maturity and moves forward without bitterness. Similarly, when he faces failure, he does not collapse under pressure. He reflects, learns, and improves. His self-worth is not tied to success or failure. It is tied to his character and his effort. In a world where attention is often mistaken for value, a man with self-respect does not seek to be constantly seen or noticed. He does not perform for approval. He does not change his personality to fit into spaces where he does not belong. Instead, he remains authentic, even if it means being misunderstood or overlooked. He knows that the right people will recognize his value without him having to prove it repeatedly. Self-respect also brings a certain calmness and composure. A masculine man does not feel the need to react to everything. He does not get easily triggered by criticism or negativity. He listens, evaluates, and decides what deserves his response. This level of control gives him an aura of quiet confidence. People may not always understand him, but they can sense his stability. He is not easily shaken because his foundation is internal, not external. There is also a strong connection between self-respect and consistency. A man who respects himself does not act based on mood or convenience. He aligns his actions with his principles, even when it is difficult. He keeps his word not because others expect it, but because he expects it from himself. This consistency builds trust both within himself and with others. Over time, it strengthens his identity and reinforces his sense of discipline. Self-respect is also reflected in how a man takes care of himself, physically, mentally, and emotionally. He does not neglect his health or his growth. He invests time in improving himself, learning new skills, and becoming better in all aspects of life. This is not driven by insecurity or comparison, but by a genuine desire to evolve. He understands that respecting himself means taking responsibility for his own well-being. Another dimension of self-respect is patience. A masculine man does not rush into situations out of fear of missing out. He does not settle for less just because he feels lonely or pressured by time. He is willing to wait for what aligns with his values. This patience is not passive. It is active and intentional. He continues to grow, work, and improve while waiting for the right opportunities and connections. Self-respect also protects him from manipulation. He does not fall for emotional games or inconsistent behavior. He recognizes patterns and addresses them early. If someone tries to control him through guilt, fear, or confusion, he steps back and reassesses the situation. He does not allow himself to be pulled into dynamics that compromise his peace of mind. At the same time, self-respect does not make him arrogant or rigid. It does not prevent him from being kind, compassionate, or understanding. In fact, it enhances these qualities. Because he is secure within himself, he can treat others with respect without expecting anything in return. He does not give to receive. He gives because it aligns with his character. However, he also knows when to stop giving if it is not appreciated or reciprocated. There is a quiet strength in a man who is rooted in self-respect. He does not need to announce his standards or prove his worth through words. His actions speak for him. The way he walks away from disrespect, the way he maintains his boundaries, and the way he stays true to himself even in difficult situations all reflect a deep sense of inner strength. This kind of masculinity is often misunderstood. Some may see it as distant, cold, or detached, but in reality, it is balanced and controlled. It is not about shutting down emotions, but about managing them wisely. It is not about avoiding connections, but about choosing the right ones. It is not about being unavailable, but about being selective. A man who is rooted in self-respect understands that his time, energy, and attention are valuable resources. He does not waste them on people or situations that do not align with his values. He chooses carefully where he invests himself. This selectiveness is not about pride, it is about clarity. Over time, this approach to life creates a sense of peace and stability. He does not live in constant emotional chaos or confusion. He knows where he stands, what he wants, and what he will not tolerate. This clarity reduces unnecessary stress and allows him to focus on what truly matters. Self-respect also influences how a man handles success. He does not become arrogant or lose his sense of humility. He remains grounded, understanding that success is a result of consistent effort and discipline. He does not seek to dominate others or prove superiority. Instead, he continues to grow while maintaining his values. In moments of uncertainty, self-respect acts as a guide. When faced with difficult decisions, he asks himself whether a choice aligns with his values and dignity. If it does not, he walks away, even if it is the harder path. This ability to choose integrity over convenience defines his character. Ultimately, masculinity rooted in self-respect is about alignment. It is about aligning thoughts, actions, and values in a way that reflects integrity and strength. It is not dependent on external factors, and it does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains consistent, steady, and reliable. This foundation allows a man to navigate life with confidence and clarity. He does not chase validation, approval, or attention because he already knows his worth. He does not need to prove himself to anyone because his actions consistently reflect who he is. And in a world full of noise and distraction, this quiet, unwavering self-respect becomes one of the most powerful forms of masculinity. Attention is not something that can be demanded, chased, or forced into existence. It is a natural response that flows toward value, authenticity, and presence. When a man understands this deeply, he stops trying to convince others to notice him and instead focuses on becoming someone worth noticing. This shift in mindset changes everything about how he interacts with the world. Instead of seeking validation externally, he builds a life internally that naturally draws interest, respect, and curiosity from others. In a world driven by instant gratification and constant noise, many people fall into the trap of believing that more effort, more messages, more visibility, and more persistence will eventually force someone to pay attention to them. They think that if they just try harder, speak louder, or show up more frequently, they will become impossible to ignore. But attention does not work that way. Forced attention often creates resistance rather than attraction. It can feel overwhelming, desperate, or even intrusive to the person on the receiving end. Instead of building genuine interest, it pushes people away. A man who understands that attention is earned takes a completely different approach. He focuses on the quality of his presence rather than the quantity of his efforts. He does not flood conversations with unnecessary words or chase after every opportunity to be seen. Instead, he speaks with intention, acts with purpose, and allows space for others to come toward him. This creates a sense of intrigue and respect because people are naturally drawn to what is not easily available. There is a level of patience involved in earning attention. It requires the ability to wait without becoming anxious or insecure. A man with this mindset does not feel the need to constantly check if he is being noticed or appreciated. He understands that real attention builds over time through consistency, authenticity, and value. He is not in a rush to prove himself because he knows that anything forced will eventually collapse under its own weight. Earning attention also means being selective about where energy is invested. Not every person, environment, or situation deserves equal effort. A man who respects himself does not try to impress everyone. He understands that trying to gain attention from the wrong people is a waste of time and energy. Instead, he focuses on spaces where his presence is valued and where mutual respect exists. This selectiveness not only protects his energy, but also increases his perceived value. There is also a strong connection between attention and mystery. When everything is given away too quickly, there is nothing left to discover. A man who overshares, overexplains, or constantly seeks to be understood often reduces his own impact. On the other hand, a man who reveals himself gradually creates curiosity. People become interested because there is depth to explore. This does not mean being secretive or dishonest. It simply means understanding the power of pacing and restraint. Another important aspect is emotional control. When attention is not given, many people react impulsively. They may double text, seek reassurance, or try to regain control of the situation through excessive effort. These reactions often come from insecurity and fear of being ignored. A man who believes that attention is earned does not fall into this pattern. He remains calm and composed. If attention is not reciprocated, he does not chase it. He steps back and allows the situation to reveal itself. This emotional stability is attractive because it signals confidence and self-assurance. Earning attention also involves building a life that is inherently interesting and fulfilling. When a man is deeply engaged in his goals, passions, and personal growth, he naturally becomes more appealing. His energy is not centered around seeking attention, it is centered around creating value. This shift makes him stand out because he is not competing for attention in the same way others are. Instead, attention begins to come to him as a byproduct of his lifestyle. There is also an element of respect involved. When attention is forced, it often disregards the boundaries and preferences of others. It assumes that someone should respond, engage, or reciprocate regardless of their own feelings. This can come across as entitled or inconsiderate. Earning attention, on the other hand, respects the autonomy of others. It allows people to choose freely whether they want to engage or not. This creates a healthier and more balanced dynamic. Consistency plays a crucial role in earning attention. One impressive moment or gesture may capture interest temporarily, but it is consistent behavior that sustains it. A man who is reliable, grounded, and true to his values naturally builds trust over time. This trust translates into attention because people feel safe and comfortable engaging with him. They know what to expect, and this predictability creates a sense of stability. At the same time, unpredictability in certain aspects can enhance attention, not in a chaotic or inconsistent way, but in a way that keeps interactions dynamic and engaging. A man who is always predictable in every aspect may become easy to overlook. But when there is a balance between consistency and spontaneity, it creates a more engaging presence. People remain interested because there is a sense of freshness and excitement. Earning attention also requires self-awareness. A man must understand how he presents himself, how he communicates, and how his actions are perceived. This does not mean changing who he is to fit expectations, but rather refining his behavior to align with his values. Self-awareness allows him to recognize what works and what does not, enabling him to improve without losing authenticity. There is also a distinction between seeking attention and appreciating attention. A man who constantly seeks attention often becomes dependent on it. His mood, confidence, and sense of self fluctuate based on how much attention he receives. This creates instability and insecurity. In contrast, a man who earns attention appreciates it without becoming dependent on it. He enjoys it when it comes, but remains unaffected when it does not. Another key factor is boundaries. A man who is always available, always responsive, and always accommodating may unintentionally reduce his own value. When there are no limits, there is no sense of scarcity, and without scarcity, attention often diminishes. By setting boundaries and maintaining a balanced level of availability, he creates a dynamic where his time and presence are valued. There is also an important role of confidence in earning attention. Confidence is not about being loud or dominant. It is about being secure in oneself. A confident man does not need to prove his worth through excessive effort. His presence alone communicates strength and stability. This quiet confidence naturally attracts attention because it stands out in a world where many people are trying too hard to be seen. Earning attention also involves letting go of the need for control. When a man tries to control how others perceive him or respond to him, he often ends up overcompensating. This can lead to forced behavior that feels unnatural. By letting go and allowing interactions to unfold organically, he creates a more authentic and relaxed environment. This authenticity is what draws people in. There is also a deeper psychological aspect to attention. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel something, whether it is curiosity, respect, admiration, or comfort. A man who understands this does not try to impress through superficial means. Instead, he focuses on creating meaningful interactions. He listens, engages, and responds in a way that makes others feel valued. This emotional connection is far more powerful than any attempt to force attention. Earning attention also requires resilience. There will be times when effort is not recognized, when presence is overlooked, or when interest is not reciprocated. A man who understands the nature of attention does not take this personally. He does not internalize it as a reflection of his worth. Instead, he recognizes that not every situation is meant for him. He moves forward without resentment or self-doubt. There is also a sense of independence that comes with this mindset. A man who does not rely on attention for validation is free to live life on his own terms. He is not constrained by the need to be liked or accepted. This freedom allows him to be more authentic and genuine, which in turn makes him more attractive. Earning attention also involves understanding timing. Sometimes it is not about what is done, but when it is done. Knowing when to speak, when to act, and when to step back can significantly impact how attention is received. A man who has a sense of timing is able to create moments that feel natural and impactful rather than forced. There is also an element of respect for oneself in not forcing attention. When a man chases attention that is not given willingly, he diminishes his own value. It sends a message that he is willing to accept less than he deserves. By refusing to chase, he reinforces his own standards and maintains his dignity. Earning attention is also closely tied to personal growth. As a man evolves, learns, and improves, his value increases. This growth is not just external, but internal as well. It reflects in his mindset, his behavior, and his interactions. As a result, attention becomes a natural outcome rather than a forced objective.